So this is Intro to Moneying. Hopefully everyone here is in the right place. So if you have ever wanted to learn how to make money in a much less financially savvy way, that's what we're going to be going over today.
So I won't be able to spend the money I make?
Depends.
Better than mine.
So these notes here are done by Mr. Eldred of Northshield. He's got a very recent update that he did on them. He's got great info. Most people I know have been using these for your general intro to moneying classes. So to start, process for money, or for people familiar with the general moneying process at all, or for anything. Those that aren't familiar, at its core, you got two dies, piece of round steel that the image of the coin is carved into. Blank made of softer material goes between the two, hit it with a hammer, it presses the image. You get an off-center strike. It's not perfectly on there, but it gets a decent strike. Let me get some better ones. Pass around.
It's still very period.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The majority of period coins that are found are not full strikes. The reasons that you see documented ones that are really pretty, it's because museums put out their pretty ones. So at the core of your tools for moneying, there is your dies, your striking hammer, your bolster, which is this big piece of metal, and your stump. For the actual manufacturing of the dies, there are your punches, which is what is used to carve the image into the face. Those are kind of the core tools of your actual moneying kit. In getting to those core tools, there's more stuff with you needing needle files, wider miter files. This is a small one, but you'll want a wider one for process I will get into, and lots of sandpaper to get to the actual preparation of these pieces. So for this intro class, I'm going to go through just each of those core pieces of your kit and what is needed to get those together and how that actual process works. So starting with your dies, these are 1-inch diameter cold rolled steel. Generally 1080 steel is what's used, but any cold rolled steel will generally work. There is one reference on there, Speedy Metals, I believe it is, on the basic material list on page 2. I also highly recommend a place called Midwest Steel Supply. If you look up round stock on there, you can get 1-inch diameter cut to any length you want. You generally want to get 4 or 5 inches for your dies. If you order them in quantities of more than one, you get a really good price on it, including shipping. And it's very expensive to ship solid metal. I got 10 of these for $50. Already cut to 4 inches length. Now with that, there's kind of a rough cut on the end. So when you get your pieces, the first thing you want to do is either on a belt sander or with a milling file, get the surface as smooth and also as level as you can. If you have a level or better a machinist square, to just check, you want both halves to be as close to 90 degrees as possible and with no raised or lowered portions, because if either of those happens, you will have a dead zone in the face of your coin. In dead zone being, it's a spot where no matter how hard you hit it, it will not strike it, because it is just a different elevation than the rest of it. Once you have that leveled and basically milled to a point where the entire surface is uniform, then is the generally most time-consuming and most fun part. Yes, polishing the face. If you go to page 3 on the notes, this diagram on the side goes over, but this whole page talks about preparing your die stock. You want for your base to have a smooth as smooth of a surface as possible. I have a big piece of granite that was like a cast off from a countertop maker, but a piece of thick glass or a tile is also useful, but you'll want a smooth as surface possible for the sandpaper to be sitting on. So there's no bumps as you sand it.
A lot of the granite countertop people will have a pile outside their shop that you can just go and get a piece from for nothing.
I have
just got some for Micah for leather working nearby because they're like, oh, she's like called them. I need like about a 6-inch square, and she said 6 inch, and they thought she meant 6 by 6 like feet, and she's like, no, 6 inches. I'm like, oh, there's a dumpster out back. You can come dumpster dive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got from a countertop place not too far from Bloomington, that I use for leather working primarily, but also when I'm doing my dies. It's like 2.5 by 4 feet. It was $15. So lay that down, and then you start the sanding, which just have your paper laid out. If you're using wet dry paper, I recommend having either oil or water on there to lubricate that to get all the the sand that chips off and the actual metal flakes out of the way. Otherwise, you'll occasionally just get a big scratch down the middle and have to start that step over. And fun part, you then just keeping it as level as possible, run it forever. It shows in the diagram how to tell when it's done. Once you've got all the lines looking in the same direction, you want to rotate it 90 degrees, do a couple of passes with it, and then check. If you've gotten them all, if they're all going in the same direction again, that means the whole surface has been, I can take that back, swing it around.
I can get it from her.
If they're all going the same direction, that means it has been smoothed enough. And you're ready to move up to the next grit. Oh yes.
That's what I passed.
Yeah, thank you. If not, if there's still like some ridges showing, that means it's not fully uniform, you gotta keep going. Generally, the majority of that smoothing step will be at 220 grit. Once you've gotten it leveled with the file or on the belt sander, start at 220, or even 100 if you want.
When I got a bunch of stock recently from the Midwell steel that he recommended, and I just went up to 120 instead of starting with 220, and you know, smoothed it out without files there. There's that one deeper perf on every one. If they were all like this, it would save me like 10 minutes each.
Yeah.
That's why I hit mine on a belt sander to get that one deeper cut on everyone out.
Yeah, the only thing worse than the initial polish is polishing off a mistake.
I reused the die once, and that was the worst. Taking it down enough to take all my punches out.
I'm very cheap, so when I make a lot of mistakes, so I have to recut and resand a lot of dies, and yeah, I can't file them down anymore. Hit it on the belt sander for a couple of minutes just to take that much down.
Excuse me.
Here,
Yeah.
Here, I'll move.
No, don't.
No.
I'm just listening.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing too.
This is my son. So I know the background.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I'm kind of auditing their class.
Oh dear. The majority of your time will be at the 220 grit. Moving up from that, so I would say it gives like a kind of comedic percentage. Yeah, 91% on 220. It even says a bit of exaggeration. I find about 80% on 220, and then maybe 5% on the rest. This one works all the way up to 1500. I find that a bit overkill. I honestly, like these ones, which is the current Royal Pound, I took up just to 800, and it was good enough. For that, the more polished the surfaces, the more like shiny your actual final struck coin will be, because that impact, like every imperfection in the point of polishing is every imperfection in the surface of it will end up on the surface of the coin. But that means if the surface of your die is incredibly shiny, you'll get a pretty shined surface on that. But I also sometimes will throw these in a vibrating tumbler if I really want to polish them up. But that step is honestly not necessary unless you really want super, super shiny coins. Once you've polished up to whatever your grit is, be it like 800, I would say is the minimum, like highest grit it should be. Possibly 1,000 or up to 1,500. After that, and you know you've checked the lines all going in the correct direction, you got it polished up then your die is ready to then start engraving the image into. And for that, you will need punches. Engraving is also not quite the right word. It's more you're chasing the image in. You can use engravers. That is partially engraved. Semantics. I'll get into a little bit of both. So for your punches, you want to go just to the next page. Talks about punch making. The stock that you make the punches out of, any high carbon steel will work. I and a lot of moneyers like to use alphabet punches used for marking steel. I get a box of these from Harbor Freight. They're like $10 for a set of 36. You then anneal them, so heat them up to cherry red, minimum hot, on just like with a propane torch. Let them cool just in air to remove the tempering, or remove the hardening. And then sand that letter off, because the letters are bad for a couple reasons. One, they're way too big. Two, they use a very modern font. And three, the letters are reversed in the punches. Like, because they're made to make the text going the correct way on whatever tool you're hitting them on. But your letters have to be reversed on your dies, because then it will be the right way when you strike it. So, and I actually looked into it. You can get reverse punches made. They're more expensive. And I'm actually looking on getting a set of alphabet punches made for like 2 millimeter tall letters from a place, but that set's gonna be probably a couple $100. That's not, we're talking about budget moneying right now.
So the cheap Allen wrenches will work too, but you gotta cut them off or open them up.
Yeah, go to a thrift store, like a pawn shop, where they got like a bunch of scrap tools, Allen wrenches.
Belatedly.
What?
Sorry. Can I join you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Belatedly, sorry.
We got another set of notes here.
Yeah, finally you're throwing things. You got
Go
it,
ahead,
but you were
go
throwing
ahead.
things.
In terms of like cheap stock, concrete nails are great. If you want to if you're just starting out, get some concrete nails to mess with. This is, I'll pass these around first. These are some of the very first ones I made. Those are frankly way too big if you're working on making letters.
What did you tell me?
Look, Alden's line when he was teaching us was,
Those are
because we
great,
spent
now
hours.
10% smaller.
Yeah.
Looks good, now 10% smaller.
Yeah.
And he'd come back 20 minutes later, looks good, now 10% smaller.
Yeah, so there are seven, talked about here, there's 7 basic shapes, which are all kind
Too
of
big now.
illustrated here. So your long stem and your short stem. So it's basically, the stem, it can have the kind of curved sides on it, like an image, or it can just be a straight piece. Your short one, your O, so just, or annulet, the circle, large crescent, small crescent, teeny tiny triangle, and then a dot. And you can see below there, that you can make all of your letters out of. And if you also look at the secondary handout, a lot of images were also made in that way. There are, like, in later coins, they would make like specialty punches for specific things. Even like a punch that is just a face. I've got, when I pass around these, I've got some more specialty ones that I've made, but those 7 basic shapes are more than you need to start with. All of your punches should be and I'm talking about the size here, based upon the size of your stem punch. So you're tall, generally when you're doing lettering, you want your letters to be no more than about 2 millimeters tall. So your long stem punch should be about 2 millimeters tall. Everything after that should be based upon that height. So your short stem, in general, your short stem should be half of the length of your long stem. Your large crescent should be the height of your long stem. Your short crescent, half the height, because that's how you like make your D or your P. your triangle, which is generally used to do like the little serifs on the ends, or for some connecting parts on the letters, that should be a quarter of the height of your long stem. So my tiny triangle is, which is it here?
When you say stem, is that the size of the actual part that is going to cut into
The stem is basically, it's the long bar is what it's saying. Like, so this
Talking
piece,
about the shape.
yeah, this
Yeah.
piece here is the stem.
Oh, okay.
It's like
Scribble, it's your descender.
like mine doesn't have the curved sides because mine are super thin, so it's just a straight bar. The period should also be about a quarter the size of your long stem. So your triangle and your period are going to be maybe 0.5 millimeter at their longest point. For actually carving these, basically after you've annealed it, you've ground off the surface, or it's honestly easier to start when you're starting. You start with a nail because it's already pretty much a point. You can just hit it a little bit. For these, after I've ground down the face, and then on the belt sander, like twist it against the sander. Talking about it on the punch stock here to make a kind of cone on the end of it because it's going to be a pretty small surface at the end, and you want it to be a sort of gradual. You don't want it to be just like a straight jump into that, because if you hit a little too deep, then you're going to get the outline of it. You want it to be a more gradual cone into the end of that surface. So once you've annealed it, there's then the rough shaping. For securing these, I don't have it with me, but I recommend a ball vise. So a vise that you can adjust the actual angle of it with, because it is murder on your back to be going over it, like directly overhead. It's a lot easier if it's sitting at an angle to be carving that. For the rough shaping, you use a mill file, or I use a mill file, a much smaller one, something like this. And this is just to get the general shape and outline for it. Probably, it's like with the sandpaper where you're going from, 80% of it is at 220, but 80% by mass, not by time, is done with this file. So you get it to about 80% of, or I guess about 20% bigger than you want it to be with the rough shaping.
A cheap ball vise.
Mm-hmm.
Go to a bowling alley and ask for an old bowling ball.
Yes, for
Thrift stores usually run about $3.
Bowling alleys can sometimes just give them to you.
you can see, for bowling alley, that also works for when I get to putting the image in the dies. The bowling ball vise is also a good way to go. But yeah, it's bowling ball, cut in half. And then for a die, you have like a 1-inch diameter or whatever the size of your die stock is drilled into the middle of it, and then you put the bowling ball like on a bowl or like just like a circle, like a roundel of cloth or something, and you can then adjust it and move it around a little bit.
I use that pan.
Yes, or a pan of some kind.
I currently put on my leg.
And so you can mess with the angle on that too. So you can have like a small one done for your punch stock on there, because I mainly use these, but I've used differing sizes. I just use the ball vise. You can just adjust it directly to what you need. But so you got it about 20% bigger than you want with the file. Then you start going in with your needle files. These are from Harbor Freight. Most of this stuff I get is from Harbor Freight Tools, because it's incredibly cheap. Like this was like $10. These are maybe $4 for the whole set. I also adhere very strongly to Adam Savage's phones away, please.
Sorry.
To Adam Savage's mentality for picking tools, which is if you're not sure how much you're going to be using a tool, buy the cheap one from Harbor Freight. If it breaks, that means you're using it enough to justify buying the expensive ones. Also, thing from Harbor Freight, and this will get when I get into the striking hammers, a lot of their hand tools have a lifetime guarantee on it. So I use a brass hammer for striking, even though it deforms from hitting the steel, because if it breaks, they will just replace it. This is also depends on what you're striking. This is not heavy enough for a lot of coins, but for ones that have a lot of like image on it, it'll still work. I'll get to that when we get to the striking portion. So then the next, this is about 20. The next like 18%. You then go in with your needle files, getting it, almost there but not quite. This is also, you go in with like your little circular ones or like the triangle shaped ones for carving out if there's like depressions, if you're doing like the stem with the fluted sides in it. At this part of the stage, it is also very beneficial to have a magnifier. You can get a cheap, just like over jeweler's like visor kind of thing, just flips down, looks super dumb, but it works. For about no more than $10. Mine had a light in it. The light broke, and that one was really cruddy. So do I have it with me? I have a cheap hiking lamp that I will either, if I can get it to fit on the visor, do that. I will also sometimes, and like God, I work on this alone because it looks so stupid, have it like this and kind of just facing up at just to get uniform illumination on it, because if you have a good overhead lamp, that works too, but you don't want to work if there's shadows on it, because you will overcut somewhere.
For fine detail in my sewing, I actually have an aught lamp that has a 3-point swing arm, and it's a ring lamp that has a lid in the middle of it that will open up and let you look through it, and it's a magnifying glass.
Joanne Fabrics and Michaels both have variations of those in stock, and they constantly have good coupons.
That one, getting the next on my list for my kit is a bolster like this. Like, this is my current bolster. Thank you, Conrad, for letting me borrow this. But after that, it's getting a lamp like that, because the low, it works, but it honestly sometimes gets in the way more than I like. So you do, now you're about 2% bigger than you want it to be, like barely there. For the last step, that is you're then polishing it. So then you will go in with some sandpaper. You don't need to go all the way down to 220. I would start with around like maybe 400-ish. Just to get that last bit off into your final shaping. After that, you will then harden the punches. This type of steel, in particular, is an oil quench steel. You'll want to double check the type of steel you use, but it's better to oil quench over first instead of water quench, because if you accidentally oil quench steel that's designed to be water quenched, it just won't take, and you'll just have to reharden it. If you accidentally water quench steel that's designed to be oil quenched, it can explode. Yeah.
If you're not sure, oil quench.
Yes, if you're not sure, oil quench. So for that part of the step, you get with a propane or like MAP torch, heat it to at minimum cherry red, get it to orange if you can. Then take it, submerge it in just regular canola oil, and it smells really good as you're doing it. And I normally just hold and kind of swirl it for about 30 seconds a piece. Then take it. It will still be very hot. Set it somewhere to that for the rest of the way. Yes. Oh no, I bare hand this on the propane torch. What are you talking about?
Yeah, when you're working with quenching metal, always assume that everything on your bench is hot, because you don't want to pick up the one thing that is and you thought it wasn't.
Especially scars on our hands for
especially when your work surface is stone, which does not like to relieve itself of heat very quickly. After that, I then, and I'll pass these around right now actually. So these are some of the shapes that I've done. Some of the special ones, I'll just move to the end. They stand out. I've got a star pattern that I did and a leaf that I used for like laurel leaves. I also used for the lotuses. Those are the ones there. So you can mess around with shapes beyond those 7 basic shapes. For example, like a very common thing in the center of coins is a small cross made out of 4 triangles. Instead of having to try to line those up every time, I made a triangle punch or a cross punch. That's just I cut a square and then just cut an X across it, and you've got your triangle cross right there. But after they were done hardening, I then have hit it on like a jeweler's polishing wheel to get it like good and shined up, and also just get the extra crud off of it from the actual cooling process. And at that point, the punches are pretty much good to go. After the punches are done, then you go into actually putting the design onto the surface of the coin. And this is what I was talking about with, you've got I will either put them in my vise, or if you've got the bowling ball vise rig that also works for the angle, I also will often just carve them in the bolster, because that one, I work for that portion, I work better with it if I'm like directly over it, because it doesn't take quite as long. But that portion of the process is going in, and just each element on that coin you are individually hitting in with these punches and a smaller hammer. You are not going to use your striking hammer, which is at minimum 3 pounds, is on average 8 pounds to put the image into your die. You're going to want an engraving hammer, or if you don't have one of those, a tack hammer, which they also sell at Harbor Freight very cheap. This is also something you'll want your magnifier for. The first step in carving that image doesn't like the image. Your first step in carving the image into the die is going to be your border. Pretty much all coins have a bead border, and that is done just like with the dot, and you going around in a circle and making that outer border. As I think you saw on the die that was passed around. So in terms of the size of your coin, most common is this 1-inch stock, is for a 3/4 inch diameter coin, which is about the size of a penny. In general, you want your coin to be, by diameter, at least 25% smaller than the stock itself. Because if it is, the closer your coin gets to the edges, the more perfect of a strike you need for it to actually take. Because if there's little variation off to the side, most of the energy is still going into the center, unless you're really off. This was a beautiful coin that I made, but I'm never going to do it this way again. I had a vigil token that I did for someone's pelican, and it was great carving a pelican at that scale. But if you want to pass those around, but I for that run made them 100 coins. I struck at least 250 and had to melt down and recycle the metal from the others because I could not get a clean strike. And I also was not striking with my normal hammer. I had a full sludge hammer, which is why the end on that mushroomed out so badly. The mushrooming and the actual striking part we'll get to in a little bit. But for your coin design, it talks a bit about layout here, which is the actual how to structure a period layout. I admit it's not my main skill set with this. A lot of these are stuff I've done based off of various period designs, or if there's a specific thing someone wanted for a token, I've done. But you can, I have hundreds and hundreds of pages of just reference pictures of coins for stuff to put together. And
great source for wonderful pictures of period coins is search for medieval coin auctions.
That was exactly what I was about to say. Look for auction catalogs.
They take really nice photos.
What?
I got a call from Bradford Exchange, and they were offering it that day 2 originals.
Ooh.
So if you're going to look for originals, you're getting an idea.
Yeah,
That's
I have a
place to call.
I have a 500-page PDF that is just 500 pages of medieval coins from an auction in 2014, I think. So there's a lot you can do with that, and a lot of getting the image you want. There's honestly just a lot of trial and error and working that out. I personally recommend get a piece of softer metal. I work with pewter for making my own blanks. So when you're trying out your design, try it out on some pewter or like aluminum, something that is one softer, so it's a little easier to work with, but also isn't going to undo the hour of work it took to smooth the surface of this. So definitely use some softer metal to practice if you're working on something first time.
I used the oil-based non-hardening craft clay to take test impressions.
Yes, as I'm working on coins, silly putty. I have a little thing of silly putty, and just as you're testing out your design, then you can press it in and just real quickly see how good it's looking. Now, a couple of tricks for cheating on making these. The bead border. You generally want to go in sometimes like with a circle tool and like mark it out. I recommend also for all your stuff having a little metal scribe. Use that to scribe the circle for the outer border, and you can kind of follow around that little depression with your seating tool. And also you can you want to be very light about it. If you're not confident with that you have a very steady hand, I would recommend using like a pencil or like a quick drying oil-based pen instead to mark your design on it ahead of time. There are also ways you can transfer a design using like engraving transfer wax, or if you have a laser printer, using acetone. I'll go into, if we have time at the end, someone remind me and I'll go into that
Would
portion.
carbon transfer paper work?
Yes, that would also work. But yeah, carbon transfer.
I'm thinking what I have on hand from Scrabble things.
It might. I would do a little test. I just don't know if carbon paper would stick to metal that way.
If you're just trying to get it long enough to get the base design, I feel it would probably work.
Yeah, that
It does smudge off pretty easy.
Yes, but like
so
if you're
does
being careful about what you're
so does
touching,
engraving
well,
transfer wax. If we have time at the end, I'll get into some of the methods I've tried out with this. But cheating for this. This is something that someone out in Callantyre made.
I want this.
What? Yes. So, because the big problem is you want it to be as perfectly centered as possible. And it's real hard. Like he talked in the notes here, talks about using a center finding tool to like get that exact point. This is a little piece of aluminum, milled, inch diameter on this side, 3/4 inch.
I don't remember who I got it from now, but I got a 3D printed plastic cup.
I am
It
working.
has multiple holes in it.
I am working on some designs that I'm going to start posting for that. But like this is a little metal one. I'm working on a 3D printed one that I'll probably start sharing to anyone that wants it. But yeah, put that. It's centered on it, and then just go on with the scribble tool, and you've got a perfectly centered circle. Because if they're not perfectly centered, there's going to be an issue. All of your coins on top and bottom are going to be off center on one side or the other.
Also, I've got one of the circle. Like I see a picture of the circle templates. I've used a couple of those that I've got one that has just like the perfect little triangles for the indices. That if I put those on the edge, I can line it up and it's in center. But I found even better is I've got one that goes by like I forget, like maybe 30 seconds, and I go just a hair inside the 3/4 inch, and so my bead border then is inside more the edge of the coin. Because if you do a 3/4 inch circle, then you do your bead border, a lot of your bead border is going to be off the edge of the coin, even if you get it perfectly centered.
It depends. Yeah, it also depends on you. If the blanks used, blanks are going to be in another whole part we talk about after get into finishing the dies. The size of your blanks also does matter. That like this particular bolster can do coins that are 1 inch. Basically, this is for a 1 inch stock, which will generally be a 3/4 inch or smaller coin. On the other side, it's 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inch stock, and that's what you do a 1 inch coin on. Which lesson learned for if ever do coins that big again.
I want to get a little better before I touch that.
And then in finishing your die prep, so I'm not page 10 on the notes. You can then lightly polish the surface of your die again. This depends upon how much shine you want to get on it, but also it talks here about lapping, which because these designs are chased, so this is an alternate set I made for that Royal Pound, and I'll pass this around. This is one that was not sanded down at the end. You can see, actually, let me do one of each so you can see the difference. The difference in the words, because the metal flares up a little bit when you tap in that design. When you strike, that takes away a little bit of area for detail, but it also gives a clearer, it does not take as much effort to get a clear strike on it. Because of that, the whole design is slightly raised off of the base surface.
It makes it look more correct also.
Yes, it corrects the image. It's that part's hard to explain. But yeah, if you can look at it, it's like this looks like crud, and then you strike it, it's like, wait a minute, that actually looks pretty good. I can't explain it, but it averages out the little imperfections in certain spots. The trade-off is that if you've got very fine details, you're losing space with it. The actual die I used for the Royal Pound there, I fully sanded off the lapping for it because I was losing too much detail with it. And then once that was in, I then went back through the entire thing. Do I have one with me? Yes. I then went back over every line on that with an engraver and cleaned out each one, because engraving is not pushing metal around, that's actually removing the metal. And you can do just fully engraved from the start coins. Those Pelican coins, that thing was wholly just engraved. The issue with engraved coins is because it doesn't have that lapping, they generally take more force. So my bolster, which is something that I made with my grandfather some years ago, works well enough, but this, and this being, an inch-thick piece of steel, is not heavy enough for engraved coins. You want as much mass as possible between the coin.
And mine is a light travel bolster.
Yes, this is a travel bolster. Between the die and the
Mine's about that size. I welded a plate to the bottom of it and bolted that plate to the base to make increase the mass. I bolted it on so that I could take it off and drive a stuck die back out of it. But it's bolted to my base.
Yeah.
I don't travel.
We'll get into the issue of stuck dies when we get to bolster construction. So there's little trade-off with removing that, either keeping or removing that lapping. So just keep that in mind, but both methods work. After that, the last thing you want to do is very slightly bevel the edges of your die, just with either some sandpaper or have a file secured in something. You want to just, as you're twisting it, run it over, very slight bevel. And that is for this reason. Most striking does not use, this is another thing that is technically cheating, but all the money is doing.
It's not cheating, it's Anglo-Saxon.
I just pinch my fingers.
Here's the thing. This is how most coins were normally struck. And if you don't bevel the edges, and you get your finger pinched in there,
it's gonna hurt.
Bad time.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
I would recommend beveling the edge before you start doing your die, because that's something I learned with the ones I got from Midwest Steel, where they're not beveled. And I tore up my thumb engraving because anytime I slipped, I went into a sharp edge. I had been used to using ones that had been faced by somebody with a metal lathe, and they beveled it for me, and I never even thought about it.
You polished it to a sharp edge.
Yeah.
You polished it.
Good point. Yes, do the slight bevel before you carve.
It's not. You don't think about it because it's a 90-degree corner, but it is a sharp 90-degree corner.
Turns into a pair of scissors really quick.
If you want to send those around, you can see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like much.
Yeah.
So that is generally the core for making the dies. So the next big part of your coins is your blanks, what the actual coins are made of. So there are two main materials used for SCA coins generally, aluminum and pewter. Neither of those are period in the slightest. Most coins are made out of silver, if not gold. Silver and gold are frustrating metals, not because they're hard to work with, because they're ridiculously easy to work with and are practically begging to be made into coins.
Silver wants to be made into a coin.
Yes, but they are expensive. So, if you're making a lot of coins, I recommend aluminum. Every couple of years, the Interkingdom Moneyers Guild will do a group order. We've got one, there's one processing right now, but you can still get your name on if you're interested in some, for like 100,000-ish of these aluminum blanks.
Which lets us get them at a cheaper price.
Yes, because what these blanks are just, they are technically aluminum washers with just no hole. If you like, there is a link and reference to the Interkingdom Moneyers Guild on these notes, which, by the way, outside of what I've got in this class, check out that page. There is a shared Google Drive that has so much extra resources that goes into, like this binder here is a portion of the notes that I use from there, and there's much more.
Reinhold is putting an order together right now.
Yes.
And we'll be back on site later if you want to talk to him, the local Baron.
Yeah, he's the one who made the site tokens.
I need to talk to him about getting some more of those for the Mid-Realm Guild collection as well, because I need some for the treasury. So yeah, if you're really interested in getting a go on moneying, yeah, let him know and get your name down on the order. If not, there are people who like. If you know Strawberry, she orders tons and tons and like sells them basically at cost, just people who want them through the year.
Do you have the ones with Reinhold's face from when they became Baron and Baroness? They did coins for that.
I'll need to
They made
see
ones
this.
with his and Her Excellency's face on them.
I'll need to see if they have any.
I think he etched those.
That makes sense.
Yeah, he does a combination of modern and then he'll do some.
I just remember like the site token was like 3 of those coins a piece for
Mhm.
Mayday for their elevation for that.
So that's how you get your aluminum ones. Pewter behaves more like silver, and also has a little more weight to it. I'll pass these around in a little bit. So like it feels a little more coin, like actual coin like in your hand. We also are kind of spoiled by modern coins. Medieval coins were very thin, and they were pretty light. They also have to trade off with pewter is that it's a dead metal. I don't know if this matters too much, but just for sound example, this is what aluminum sounds like. Well, never getting that back. This is what pewter sounds like. There's not as much ping
No,
to
you
it.
get it back when you lift it.
Give me that. There we go.
Good job. I was gonna suggest like your silly putty on a gum or something if you had to.
Good point. So these, don't bother trying to make your own aluminum blanks. Go in with the order or get some from someone. Pewter blanks, I do make my own. You can alternatively just buy pewter sheet. There's a number of places online that you can buy pewter sheet from. I buy scrap pewter, melt it into ingots, and I've got a roller mill, and I will just roll out sheets. If you're making them yourself, you want it no more than 1 millimeter thick. I generally aim for about 0.8 millimeters. Another way, and this is highlighted a little bit in the notes here, are casting. So I have a soapstone mold that's got, just circles in it, and we'll heat it up, pour pewter into it, and get blanks out of it that way. These are definitely a bit thicker. And another method talks about here, it's the method. This is very much like your Greek or Celtic-esque coins. You take a piece of solder, about, what does it say, an inch and a half long. Hit it with a torch till it melts to a bead like this. Then you take 2 polished but blank die, so just the polished surface, and hit it between that to flatten it out. And it'll be a little small, like piece this big is more fit for like a 1/2 inch coin. But that's another method to do it by. And those are the 2 most popular metals. Actually, I'll pass these around. So this is aluminum. This is pewter that was rolled, and these are cast. I also, for demos, sometimes do actual period way that they would do it. Oh, actually, before I get to that, after I've rolled, you can pass those around. After I've rolled out the sheet, I then have this circle punch that I use for punching out the actual circle. And this has this is 1/2 inch up to 1 inch. I only really use 3/4 inch one. But I've got like multiple sizes of other stuff for other coins that I've done.
I need one of those.
I've got one.
I'm like, if you don't have one, I know you look for
I've got
fun
one.
days. Okay.
This is until I get one of these. This is currently the most expensive thing I have in my Moneyers kit, and this was like $40, so not bad. If you're going to be punching hundreds and hundreds of blanks, well, let's see, like slide it through and just hit it, and it punches out a nice clean pewter circle. I also do a bit of actual like the period way they do it. Granted, they'd be doing this with silver. But so this was an ingot, or part of an ingot that I actually like with a ball peen hammer hammered out from ingot into this sheet and then trace the circle on there. And then just go in with a pair of, these are like much smaller than they would use. If they're wood blocks, you'll see of like a medieval mint, and it looks like a pair of garden shears. But it's also like mounted on the table like this. And so the person's kind of pumping it and then like brings the metal through it to cut the circle out. I don't have that.
They cut more than they punched.
Yeah, no, most of them were actually cut. But for us, punching is much faster. But like, yeah, for some, if I'm talking about the actual period or showing the actual period way it was done, I'll have some of this on hand.
Cutting,
Kind of like a Beverly shear.
cutting,
What?
Kind of like a Beverly shear for steel.
cutting, you'd have to do a whole lot of them to get any kind of speed.
Mm-hmm.
I tried. I went back to the punch.
Another thing some people use instead of a punch like this, it's like a circle leather punch. Because pewter is soft enough that it will punch through that. You'll want to do that over a wood base. Otherwise, you're just going to completely ruin you're ruining the edge on your punch regardless because you're using it on metal. You're going to ruin it a lot faster if you're not punching it into wood.
Or self-healing rubber or scrap.
Yeah, something like
Or
that.
cheap plastic cutting board.
Yeah, that's it. That too.
It'll last longer than wood.
Not metal is the point. Like I stand by this personally.
That shatters signs of cutting boards that way.
Still lasts longer
They're
than wood.
Now and also one of the reasons that pewter is really good to work with for what we do is that pewter, unlike silver, does not work hard. No matter how much you hit it, it will not harden. Yeah, silver does. Anytime you are rolling or making silver sheet, you have to anneal it. Basically, if I'm doing it through a roller mill, every single pass I have to anneal it. So if I have an ingot that I'm trying to get down to 0.8 millimeters, I have to heat it up to, not red hot because silver melts before that, but basically heat it up to annealing temperature, let it cool, then I get to do one more pass.
You're doing it backwards.
No?
With non-ferrous metals, you heat it up to quench it. You're not really annealing it then.
Well, I also haven't worked much with silver, that's just from what I
Yeah,
know.
we'll talk about it.
Okay, yes. See, I only recently came into some silver, so
We'll talk about it.
good to know there's someone that knows more about silver than me on this. Also for brass. So
All
for
those stuff.
for some like special ones, I do brass. Looks kind of like gold. Brass also work hardens. Don't bother making brass sheet. Don't. Just buy it. Go to a hobby store, buy brass sheet, cut it out. Buy brass sheet. These were hand cut with this. You can also use it on a punch like this, but I don't get enough force using a hammer. You're going to want to use an arbor press to punch those out, or a really big hammer.
And then buy a punch that's the cheapest one you can find and expect to use it up.
No, when I was talking with Master Emmerich out in West Kingdom, he's one of like the real big moneyers right now. If you've ever seen Alpha Officium, those are his coins. And he showed me. I asked him what rig he uses, and it was literally this exact punch on an arbor press for brass. You also, if you want to get a little fancier, like this is brass sheet from a hobby store. If you look at jewelers' supplies, red brass, it's also sometimes called new gold, also works. It is not by much, but it's a little softer than yellow brass, and generally looks more like gold for coins. So yeah, that's the general base for starting with your blanks. Let's see, we got that.
Each auction goes off every so often.
All right, so now we get into actually striking your coins. So, for your bolster, as I was saying earlier, you want this to be as heavy as feasibly possible. Because the more mass that is in this, the more force from your hammer is going into your coin. At minimum, for die and for your hammer, the minimum you should do is 3 pounds. This is actually a little light. This is a 2-pound hammer, but I like put some force into it. With a 3-pound hammer, you can basically let gravity do most of it. Those are ones that still have the lapped edges to it. Anything that you've engraved, or basically removed that lapping, you're going to want a 6-pound minimum. I prefer 8. This used to be a sledgehammer that I just cut the handle off of because it's easier to transport. Big thing about your bolster, no matter how it's made, and there's like a little bit on like the dimensions you want in the notes here. You are always going to want to have a hole on the other side, because if it's cut correctly, so like mine doesn't have a hole through it, but mine is also not as close of a fit as it should be. Like this was made by some scrap my grandpa had lying around. So like nothing will really get stuck in this. Also, you want to put a piece of softer metal in the bottom of it, like literally drop a quarter in the bottom, because that way that is getting deformed instead of the base of your die, because if it deforms when you're hitting it, it might get stuck. But you want a hole through the bolster so that if a die gets stuck, you can then flip it over and ram a pipe, have a steel pipe of some, or rod of some kind, and hammer it out from the other side. One got stuck at Coronation, and we didn't have a steel rod on hand. And
the rod I have for that is in a different part of my toolbox that I didn't bring.
Anyway, it was the better part. What we ended up doing is literally, like, I was like trying to lift it up by the die, and was kind of like gently just shocking it out with the hammer until it loosed. Not a fun time.
Hilarious though.
Quite. So that's how you want to. You want to close the door, or is you guys still here? Okay. Okay. For your actual striking, you've always got your top die and your bottom die. You want to designate them because obviously, over time of abuse, your top die will mushroom out. This will not be obvious at the very beginning. But anything, basically, when you make a die, you want it designated as one or the other, because otherwise it might, if you put a top die that's just mushroomed out a little bit into your bolster, then it'll go to remove it, and it's been wedged in.
Is that the one from this Reigns coin, or is that a different one that you got super mushroomed?
This is this Reigns coin.
Like, I know you've made a ton of coins through this ring, so that might count for that.
Yeah. In period, the way these were generally struck it'd be set up so you got bolster, bottom die, your blank, top die.
It's like 240. So plus a few
I just remembered we had talked about something.
Okay. And like one person was holding it, and then another person with a full sledgehammer swings and hits it.
I don't trust someone that much.
Yeah, that's trust right there.
I know in the West Kingdom Moneyers Guild, they do that for group strikes, and they also have a rule. If you are the striker and you hit the supporter,
You're the new supporter.
yes, you then when it is like no matter when, even if there's a trip to the hospital or it's just a quick nick, when you guys get back to striking, you are now the supporter. But for single striking, these are very handy. This is a machined piece of steel that like fits the dies really closely, but getting a pipe will also work. This is about the diameter of your die you're using. I'm gonna close that. There's the bell ringing.
And those are nice because they're just the 1 inch, but they also have a groove so that it doesn't
Yes.
suction.
Yes, these are very good. There's a groove cut in here that's basically an air channel. I've been trying to get quotes on getting one of these bolsters made, and I've had to explain several times what the heck I mean by an air groove when describing it. But
Making friends with somebody at a machine shop is a good thing.
Imagine
Yes.
the vacuum force would be immense.
mm-hmm. I mean, just like listen to the sound when you pull this out.
Yeah.
Like,
It's,
Which also means it's easy to get something
pretty well
stuck in there.
machined.
I mean, it's also satisfying.
yes.
True, it is very satisfying.
The general two striking forms is just a sitting strike or a standing strike. You're always going to want to have a stump. Another something just really solid to absorb a lot of force, so as much of it as possible is going into that die. For a sitting strike, a lot of it is just coming from gravity of the hammer, especially with one of this weight. Kind of just lift it up and want to get as centered of a hit as possible. You still get an okay strike. If not, if it's if they're even as possible, that's also you want to spend as much time with that, getting them even. With an engraved surface, or one that was sanded down and then engraved like this, I do have to put a little more force into it. So hindsight for future coins on that. So I give it a bit of a actual swing to it to give them deeper impression on the actual coins.
You'll find discussions or occasionally, if you look for them online about blacksmiths setting up their anvils. The same rules involved with the height of the anvil.
It
top.
should be about, like, this is a little short for me. Like, when this is set, this should be about the height of my knuckles, including the bolster.
And that's the most comfortable
Yeah, it's like,
position for it to be bore striking. You're more likely to have the hammer face flat when it's the right height.
so, like, sitting strike like that, same for standing strike, just... Honestly, with a sleeve, I can do it without having to hold it. I still like to do that just for, it helps me like aiming the actual strike. And I get a little better, for something that needs this much weight, I get a little better of a force out of it because I've got the space to kind of like swing it up and then down when I don't really have that room when I'm sitting. And then, honestly, it's the same kind of format if you're doing like a team strike. That would be just, you got one person setting the die, the other person with the hammer to swing. Sometimes you'll have like a full sledgehammer. This hammer still works for team striking. And that's mainly to just kind of assembly line it. Like in a medieval mint, and if you look at it, like one person, their whole job was this. Like flick next, and this, basically they'll have like a handful of these and just drop because they're having to hit thousands of these a day. And if you look at some of the images, there's quite literally a pile of coins just on the floor. Like they did not take time to decide. They were just like flick, and at the end of the day, just sweep them all up.
When I did the site tokens for William Neisold's coronation.
Oh my God.
I did 500 pewter coins, and I thought I was doing good. We were 2 hours into the meeting. I was halfway through, and then I realized I got an hour left, not another 2. And luckily, right then, Droost came in. He was done fighting, and he's a blacksmith. So he took over hammer duty, and I did that. And I didn't care where the coins ended up. Once they were struck, they were out of there, and the next one goes in because we've got an hour to strike 250 coins.
And I can imagine just doing that.
And striking their pins of pay coins too.
Oh. I gave up on trying to hit the right weight on those. I just had a pair of pliers there to pull everything off my die.
Yeah.
And the thing with the mushrooming, the more you hit, or like the closer you hit to centered, the less mushrooming you'll get. Like a lot of things you'll see kind of like breaking at the edges, and that's from like off-center hits. If you have access to, you know, machining supplies or a very heavy-duty belt sander, you can kind of clean up that mushrooming and go in and like I've fixed old dies like that. Go in and like sand it off, just get it relatively smooth. You're not going to get the missing height back. But like when it starts to split this much, you're running risk of like a chip flying off, and those things will go fast. Yeah. You do not want to take shrapnel to the face from money.
I'm often, well, now I wear my glasses a lot more, so it's a video. But I was always bad about safety glasses until I start seeing a crack on the edge, and then I'm good about putting
I haven't lost a piece yet, but it's yet. I know.
Yeah, I have not yet either, but this is also the most abused die I've ever made because of the engraving means of it. I cannot use the brass hammer. I have to use the 8-pound sledge, whatever the word is.
The amount you make, your arm probably feels like sludge.
Yeah, I must say this has been really improving my fencing ability in that you know, being able to hold up a sword for longer when, because like honestly, SCA hobbies are where I get most of my exercise because I do the SCA, I don't have time to exercise normally.
I use a 4-pound hammer, and the force varies with the die set and the material of the brass. I had to do standing strikes.
Brass is crazy.
Yeah, I'll show you guys a brass one.
Is there like a recommended minimum kit in terms of like, this is the bare bones of what you need to do?
For moneying?
Yeah.
The bolster, striking hammer, your die stock for making your dies, and the basic set of 7 punches. That is your bare bones.
And you know what the other thing is? We make puppy dog eyes at Donald and go, hey, how's your shop doing?
I'm working on it.
Because we have a local resource.
Not as local. The bolster is probably the hardest.
And the stump.
This
Could you
was my first bolster.
Oh, okay.
Holy.
I drilled a 1-inch hole in there. Now you'll see all these cracks developed while I was using this as a bolster.
Yeah.
It didn't have a lot of life left.
But you could reinforce
Here.
it like he's
The recording's over here. Show the camera.
So it's just my log with a 1-inch hole drilled in it. There I actually put the quarter in, not to give it a harder surface than what it was striking. This worked better. This is my Mark I bolster. My Mark II bolster was about a 12-pound anvil with a 1-inch hole drilled in it.
The Harbor Freight anvil.
Harbor Freight anvil.
Yes, that is another budget. You still need access to
That
machining
worked better
supplies.
So you said a bolster, the hammer, the die.
And the punch, a basic set of 7 punches. Like I
If
said, I make fancy ones for if I'm doing special stuff, but the basic set of 7 will fulfill most of your needs.
If you make your own bolster and drill your own hole, you need to make sure you're drilling a flat bottomed hole, which means for wood you need a Forstner bit. For not wood, you need somebody in a machine shop.
Yeah, you don't want to drill a hole. You want to machine a hole rather.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
A drill has a slightly pointed tip to it. They're also, in terms of cutting metal, like when you're drilling a hole into metal versus like machining it on a lathe or a CNC, it's generally not as precise.
Mhm.
And so like, as I showed you on my first bolster, there's like a bit of wiggle room on it.
I had to shim mine.
Yeah, like the wiggle room, like mine still works, does not work for this very well at all. Like you want as much weight and as little give to the side as possible, because all of this, aside from it being more convenient than being down on the ground, is to get as much force as possible from this hammer into that disc.
Everywhere it's floppy, you lose energy.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't hurt your back to be.
Oh, it's incredibly painful after that.
Okay.
You gotta suffer for your art.
Yeah. Okay.
When I'm striking hundreds of coins, or even when I was working for a couple hours on fixing these dies because it was the first royal pound I'd done, so I wanted it to look real nice. It was like, all right, we're good. Ah!
That's the reason why you don't see a lot of really fancy tool stuff. Leathersmithing has the same problem.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much the same process. You take your dies and you sit there and tool. If you look at
He was standing up
my
for that
belt.
one because it's the
My
last
really
in the
fancy
corner.
that dragon scale quiver I made for Liu was I could not feel my hands or my back for about a day after that.
That's the reason I have a wrist brace and bilateral tennis elbow braces on.
There's a reason I should probably wear those.
Just pick up 1,000 other A&S hobbies, and then you won't spend as much time doing just this.
I
And then
do.
everything hurts.
No,
Have you not heard my song? I do that already.
we just need to put all the mineral artisans on like a rack to stretch us back out.
Well, I need to figure out how to just take every single support brace they make and turn it into a suit. And this is the crafter support suit.
You ever seen Iron Man?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Oh, I got a better idea. Is there anyone here that studies medieval chiropractic?
But I spent a whole week
is
polishing
out
dies
of,
about being insane.
Shattered crystal.
Lovely. All right, so that is the majority of the information of the base class. On the end of the notes here, there's appendix goes into some of the terms, a little bit about like the heat treating, some other tools. We got about 45 minutes left in time frame, which good because I wanted to leave some time for any questions people have, if there's anything you want to know a little more about, because I can go into deeper detail on basically anything we talked about.
So for this, for the stampings that you're using, could you use piano wire like that? Because there was a class last run on doing Viking stamped things, and we made one, and it used annealed piano wire that we had to carve there with stuff as well.
What metal were you stamping in that?
It's made for stamping copper.
That's my only, because most piano wire I know of is like copper or like...
No, it's made for stamping copper. It looks very similar to what you got there.
To these? Or to the other punches?
No,
to these?
to those. It's about that thickness. I unfortunately did not bring the bag that has the one I made last run in it.
I can't confirm one way or another. I would say maybe. I've not worked with piano wire.
Because the tools that you were saying to use to carve it down are the same tools we were using in
Yeah,
that class.
it's very much the same techniques. You know, like when I did the
Like,
one ANS thing.
Because we made
Those were the people who came to me.
we made like the very it's seen in a lot of stuff in Burka. It's the triangle that's got like the 3 dots in it, and we made one of those each during that class.
So my question for the stamping one is: were those pieces hardened?
Yes, he had a blowtorch. We had it set up, and we.
Then I would say probably
I think that might actually be another name used for the 01. They use about for making the tools.
Just because
I'm not sure of that, so
Because the piano wire is literally just as thick as the ones that you had there for where you were carving like the leaf and all of that.
Just because like I would double check just what the wire's made of. You want to be using a high carbon steel
Which
for the
is-
punches. Then it should be good.
Okay.
Because it's just the only reason I hesitate is because you were using those for hitting copper, which is much softer, because you're making impressions in steel on this.
He uses it for
the
copper.
01 is
silver,
sometimes referred to as music wire. So that's
Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah.
All right. So then yes, it should.
So I already have one that I could in theory put on things.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or anything you want to see more of? So I could talk all day about this, but I try to keep it to a cohesive overview to start.
I'll give a little overview on something I don't think you've done as much is if you when you start doing engraving, a lot of times you do engraving or a mix of engraving and punch work.
Yeah.
Like my last several dies have been a mix of engraving and punch work. Some things I learned from like the handout goes through it talks about doing the engraving first and then you do the punch work. The problem I have found is it's usually the punch work I need on the die first, because I don't lay out my whole. I 80% freehand most of my coins. I get the layout, I get the sketch of what I want, but I don't transfer it all to the thing. So it's working around the lettering that's usually the thing. So I have found you can do the punch work, and actually I do a little bit of sanding just because you sand after engraving. The one thing that really varies when you are going to do any engraving is you only do about to 400 to 600 grit before you engrave.
Or it's going to skate off of it when you start tapping it. Yeah, I believe that's touched in the notes a little bit in the sanding portion.
It's mentioned in this handout, but it is really true. Is you want to leave it a little rougher, and then say but that what also says is the engraving you're going to take out some of those lines. So it's like once I get it what I want, then I do that final polish, then I stamp a couple coins and look at where the lines disappeared and re-engrave a couple of lines.
How deep do you have to get the engraving?
Not as deep as you think.
Yeah, like 1/4 of a millimeter, maybe.
You do it too deep, it what's the word I want to use? Starves the too deep on anything doesn't strike as well. Too shallow is surprisingly hard to achieve.
Again, part of the reason because it is because getting it forced that deep means you got to have a lot more force to hit it with.
Yeah. My engraving, I have a real hard time striking the brass.
Yeah, like these these are really thin brass, so I get an okay strike from the pound on this. But like this being an engraved one or most engraved one, it's hard to get a good image on brass with it. Another thing I wanted to touch on with that, with the engraving versus punching. Is my train of thought is disappearing, so I'll see if I can remember what I was going to say. What were we just talking about?
One of the real issues is once you start doing some engraving, where he talked about scoring the circle for your beadboarding, I now engrave my circle. And then bead border.
And then you'll do the dots on the engraved line.
I do the dots on the engraved line, and it makes my bead borders just that much more even.
Yeah, because I don't engrave it. Like I use the scribe for that, but the scribe is good for. It's a very minute feeling, but like when you get used to like the feeling of there being a little imperfection in there. Like it was hard for a while to get my bead borders to be even, but if I don't even look at it, I kind of just drag it until I feel that little like click from hitting that, and that's when I hit it. And if I move that around, so they'll be pretty much all exactly at that border. You do want to be careful about dragging the surface of your punch across this because it's hardened, it will start to scratch. That's what I was, that's where my train of thought was going. When you get the strike, the higher the harder the strike is, like it will force it deeper into the marks, but at a certain point it doesn't matter too much because the stuff that is the highest on the surface is going to have the most detail.
It starts to affect the opposite side of the coin after a while, though.
Yes, especially if your stuff is super thin. Like if you look at some of these brass ones that had a super hard hit, I'll pass this one around. You can kind of see the image of the other side coming through.
Yeah, I the one I've had the most trouble with that is the one Angus's coins, which has the dark moon on it. And I took out, to make it, like I engraved out the whole 1/2 the moon. I had to, since I was doing the pelican coins, I had to line it up a certain way because if that side was over the blood drop would disappear.
Yeah.
Another thing with doing the layout of the actual design, more is better. Like some of my first designs didn't have very much image on them, but they also have very high lapping on them, so it's still a pretty decent image, but generally, the more you have going on, it's a bad strike, on the surface of your coin, the better of a strike it will turn out to be, because what you're doing with the strike is moving the metal. And if you have a perfectly flat surface, the only direction the metal has to move is out, and that takes more force to do. If there's tons of stuff carved in there, then the metal is moving just up and down. Or more so, that metal is staying where it is, and just less of it is having to move out. So the more complicated the surface of your coin is, the easier it'll be to get a good strike, if that makes sense.
And the more like a period coin it will look.
Yes, that as well. Period coins were very rarely minimalist.
Yeah.
It's probably too late, but I have ear protection if anyone needs it.
What's that supposed to mean? Is my class too loud?
No, coining.
That is another recommended PVE.
Yes, ear.
Same one.
Also from Harbor Freight, big pair of ear muffs from that are not too expensive.
Someone with some minor hearing damage, if you ever think to yourself, should I be wearing ear protection? The answer is yes.
Oh, yeah. All right. Any other questions?
Is there anything that you have to be careful about handling in terms of like contact dermatitis or like?
Not for me, at least. If you are working with your own pewter, like if you buy pewter and making stuff out of it, lead test it before you do anything. I buy big lots of pewter from eBay occasionally, and I have a huge jar of lead test swabs. Side note, use distilled water with those. Micro bits of metal in the tap water will mess with the results. I figured that because it's like literally everything was testing for lead. This just can't be right. And then I looked at the water I was dipping in, and the water was purple. It was like, that's my tap water.
Yeah, you're talking about buying pewter objects and melting them.
Yes.
Not buying pewter.
Yes, not buying from pewter supplier,
Yeah.
which you can't. If you do that, you don't have to test that. I buy old pewter goblets and stuff off of eBay.
Good job repurposing.
Yeah, years.
If you're striking aluminum coins, your hands are going to turn gray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're going to get a real fine layer of aluminum
oh, yeah,
oxide
when-
powder all over your hand.
when
It doesn't
you-
really wash off.
when you
it
are
takes a few
making
days to go away.
when you're making the dies, both when you're sanding and doing the punching, you're gonna have. There's a reason I've started wearing this when I'm coining. You are going to have black metal dust all over your hands. Wear an apron or have like baby wipes handy, because that will take them right
The
away.
handle of your little tack hammer.
Yeah. See.
Do you ever have to worry about breathing it in or no?
You're not. When you're polishing, you're making. That's when you're making the most dust. If you use a water or oil, you're minimizing that. It really depends on how paranoid you are about it. I don't. Paranoid sounds like negative, but
Yes, sensitive.
sensitive or concerned maybe is a better word. But it chances are you're not going to expose yourself to an amount that will be harmful,
Yeah.
as long as you're doing this as a hobby.
I'm also gonna say, for buying pewter stuff on eBay and whatnot, this is just a personal anecdote. There's two types of pewter lots you'll see on eBay. One is stuff that's being sold as scrap. Like, it's a big flat rate box full of pewter stuff that they've like crushed down to stuff in as much as possible. They're honestly probably selling that for more than a good going rate for pewter, because those are people that like buy it at estate sales with the purpose of, you know, selling it. The other type you'll see is people just selling like old pewterware that they have lying around. And you'll get a really good deal on that. Here's my problem. When I buy the stuff that's not been crushed up already with the express use of being melted down, I get it's like, well, this is too nice to melt down. And I have a box literally full of pewter tankards and plates now. Side note, I'm working on a service project for that to basically have like loaner feastware sets for new folks. So I am going to get some application out of that, but that was because I realized I have a pewter problem and refused to melt down this night. Because like, well, what if I have a fancy feast dinner party someday in my one-bedroom apartment?
And the chances are small because a lot of people pay a lot of attention to it. You could actually end up finding a piece of pewter that's a valuable piece of pewter that the guy that's selling it did not know that, and destroy a valuable antique by melting it.
I have a wonderful.
Check maker's marks.
Yeah.
Sure
Oh yeah.
it's
If
not
it
something
if it
priceless.
I have a really beautiful cup that somebody gave me melt down, and I'm like, no. No. Well, actually, we put it into an auction, and then I bid a raffle, and I got several of the pewter items. Everybody's like, laugh at me, like, no, about me melting them down for stuff. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm the one who chose that these were not getting melted down in the first place.
Yeah.
Is that a book of coins?
Oh yes.
And can I look at it?
Absolutely. So this,
We
if people want
briefly had
to
a
pass
guy
this
who
around,
worked
so
on
this
the
is my
cash
coin
flow
collection because I collect.
Around the known
And he's
wall.
like,
Because no, I collect fictional
when I was
coins.
doing-
So
there
this
were 3 years where I
first
did
page
computer
is all
charms
coins that
for
I have
nephews.
done.
I did
The second page are like sentimental ones that I've got from stuff. The rest, if they say SCA in the bottom, are just other coins I've collected from people in the SCA. These are also SCA coins.
Do you guys use pewter?
From the when you get to
We
the
have
Roman
people bring
spintra
stuff
and
all the
past
time
that,
and they
these
don't
are
buy
just
it.
other
I got
replicas
a couple of bucks
of
for it.
either historical coins or fiction.
So-
I also collect fictional money. So like this gets
2
into like
weeks before
Mistborn and
your
Lord of the
feast,
Rings.
there's a-
Yeah.
there's a
You're a
banker's
Mistborn
box
fans? Alright, you're gonna like some of these then.
full of pewter.
Yep.
But yeah, feel free to pass these around. Just don't
And just
tilt it because
gave it
there's
to
some
me.
heavy coins in there that will fall out.
And then that was the
Just
last we ever
tilted
saw
and
him.
ruined
Which
your.
he was excited
Luckily,
about.
they're
I
all
don't know what happened in his
sequentially
life.
numbered.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
excited about the SCA. He was excited about the upcoming band.
I'm amused because you made
He brought-
Gregory's
he brought,
vigil
like,
token
3 new
and
people that
I'm
night.
one of his
And
deputies
disappeared.
never
And then
actually
just
got one.
disappeared.
Even
And he
though
was
that
2-3 months in. Nobody has numbered.
that's
You know, it just killed us.
Wow.
that
That's
is
a great
your
recording.
coin.
Some other stuff I could go more in depth on that I've got notes for. Making, if people want more info on making the actual punches and the hardening of that, and again, all this stuff is available on the on the Inner Kingdom Moneyers Guild. Check it out. You got a request to join. You can't invite people to the group because of like spam accounts that happened once. But what is that?
The dragon over the coin that I did.
I love it. And all these are in the Google Drive. I'm working on a big research thing right now of like, because it's not just coin making. I also study like basically period numismatics as a whole. So both currency, but also its use. So finance and commerce. I could have done a whole second class just about a period counting cloth or a counting board that I did. Because this is a calculator.
Neat.
And I've got a counting cloth based off of that that's just more portable than the table.
Does your mold for your blinds look similar to the one that's there?
Not quite. In hindsight, it'd be better if I made it like that. Mine is...
Because I've seen like button molds that are done very similar.
Mine is shaped kind of like... I know I got a pen in here somewhere. Shaped kind of like this. Because it can do 6 at a time. Let me get this, because Master Philippe helped me get this working, because I was having a lot of trouble getting it to actually pour cleanly. And part of that is the arrangement with them. So mine is shaped more like that, where it's two...
Okay. As opposed to all of them off of one side.
Yes, it's 2 columns of 3 is mine.
And I have mine. I have just 4 or 5 across the top, each with their own sprue.
Mm.
So I just they're all on one block, so I can just run the block under and fill them one
Because
at
the
a time.
one here is 5 off of one spring.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And there's
And that-
there's
yeah.
many ways to do it
A
with
lot of-
pewter casting.
A lot of times it's it's details of pewter casting that's the problem, not the mold,
Yeah.
which could be a class on its own.
Yeah, I was like, part of the reason I was thought to do this is or touch on the pewter casting part. Last year, Master Avery taught his like intro and advanced pewter casting class, which is what got me into finally starting to make my own pewter blanks. 'Cause before that, I was just doing aluminum. Yeah. Also, if anyone would like to try out some striking, they're welcome to come up to do so. Give it a try.
And go hit the hammer.
Do you want to talk about annealing silver, or do you want to wait until afterwards?
If you've got more knowledge on annealing silver, I would like to know that. It would also be good for our
I have
video.
a
But
question before you get into that though.
Okay.
question.
Oh,
So-
the Roman coins.
So
Those are brothel tokens.
Penzig for
Oh.
Penzig for Bacchanal. They do
Oh, yeah.
reproductions of those as your admission pins.
So you mentioned that that's
I got
the
it.
standard size for making coins, the 1-inch die for like the 3/4 inch
Mhm.
coin. What's the minimum and maximum size like wide
So like
to
the
try
red
to
one,
do?
that one's
Because I know that
Yeah.
I've seen period
Because
coins
you
that
wouldn't
get
always
very small.
Hands. 1 second.
Oh my god,
It's easy to start with 1-inch dies, 3/4 inch coins.
Yeah.
So-
That's basically where everybody starts.
You don't speak the language.
And
So that,
be quiet for a second so I can reiterate the question for the recordings. I don't know if it picked it up. It's what's the minimum? What's the general minimum or maximum for coin
Yeah.
sizes?
What's wise to try to do if it's just you and you're not team striking?
When you're starting, I say 3/4 of an inch. That's the penny size, and it's easiest to get the 1-inch stock for this.
The blanks are going to be easier to get to.
The blanks are easy to get. My advice would be doing the 1-inch stock, minimum a 1/2 inch coin. You're not going to be able to get a lot on there because just with how area works, you're losing. Yeah, like
You're losing a lot.
like a 3/4 inch die is closer to about 50% of the area of a 1-inch diameter coin.
And Anglo-Saxons used a lot of about half-inch
Mhm.
dies or half-inch coins. They tended to be thicker, so they actually had about the same metal as the pennies he's striking.
That's kind of about what these little what are the flans are for.
But if you look at the
You
designs,
can't get a
most
real full
of
strike out of it. Let me try
those
it.
half-inch coin designs, they didn't have lettering. They had some kind of design.
Like that one doesn't fully spread out. But like you can get if this was a 1/2 inch die, you can see you could get. Oh, yeah,
It's in green.
with
They
a-
do really nice
It's actually
Do you ever do coins with either different shapes than
Yeah.
round or
Enjoy the
holes
process.
in them?
Say that again.
Different shaped coins or round with holes in them?
Like the Oriental coins,
Yeah.
they tend to be Oriental coins.
Yeah.
There's not a whole. I have never seen a European coin with a hole in it
Yeah.
that wasn't put there to make it into jewelry.
Mm.
Now you can do, and it is very period to do square coins.
Mhm.
Those are often referred to as siege money. In that they didn't have a full mint, but they still needed to pay their troops.
So did they just cut?
So
sheets?
they didn't have the guys that were trained to cut the little circles all the time, and that's a lot of work if you don't know what you're doing. So they would just cut it into strips and then cut them into squares of the right. Remember, for pretty much all of our period, the value was in the weight versus the purity. It wasn't the coin.
I was like talking about the numismatics thing. Like I again could talk for. There's a whole section in this binder that is specifically just banking and accounting.
Yeah.
That
cool.
talks about coin weights, and the one thing I do at when I do a display at events is a split tally stick, which is the original 2-factor authentication receipt. Which I will divert from making coins for a moment because this is a very fun fact. So the split tally stick. It is a stick of wood with notches cut into it, indicating an amount. So like a big notch is a pound, medium one is a shilling, then like a scratch is a pence. On each side of it, there would be the names of the people involved and like what the transaction was on it. this would then be cut like partway, about halfway from the base, and then split down the middle. So you have like one that's kind of got a handle on it that's called the stock, and then the small piece that's called the foil. And so when the debt, basically that is when the debt was created, and when it was gone to be repaid, those two would be matched up to show that the notches were still the same. And that the split, And two fun facts about that. One, because the person that was in debt got the small one, that's where the phrase "got the short end of the stick" comes from, because it means you owe someone something. And because the people would sometimes, if they were owed money by someone, similar to like debt selling today, like they would sell what they were owed at a loss to someone, but then like that person has to collect the debt. That is the origin of the term stock market, because literally selling the stocks instead of the actual money that was owed.
Can I come try it? The thing?
Absolutely.
Probably not like that.
And they were split because when they split, it's always a little bit uneven.
So the grain would match
You
up.
couldn't counterfeit. And yeah.
That sounds like a challenge.
So it actually shows a way to stand in this, but so if you want to, we want to do a standing strike for
Can I
this.
sit? Because I have a bad
Oh,
back.
absolutely.
That's sort of why.
I can also get a different
That
die
makes a
out
nice
because this
little
one
die.
takes a fair amount of force to
Okay.
do.
Oh wow.
Whichever you think is best.
Alright. Do you want to do the 8-pound or the 2-pound hammer?
Probably the
I've got a 4 in there too.
Or 4.
In the
I'll try 4.
This one?
Yeah.
Have you talked to the guy who's doing the
So,
Celtic forms?
kind of just hold this.
Let me scooch.
Yeah. So you want to hold it here. Hold the little. Actually, you can hold it closer if you want, but also if you want more force, hold it back. And for this, raise it up and let gravity do. Well, okay, I can. If you mishit it, it'll sometimes do it.
Well, shit.
Let gravity do most of the work, but give it let it have a good solid hit.
This is not as.
Oh, so you may want to sit a little further back.
Oh, further
is what
back?
I was saying.
Okay.
Inner key point.
I don't know if I can do this.
You can do it.
Hit.
You want to hit it like you mean it.
I was letting gravity do the work.
We'll see. Also, aluminum is a slightly harder metal.
Your face is great.
If you do with a pewter one, you'll generally get better.
I'm just like. I think I hit the side.
But see, pewter is very forgiving, so that one actually turns out pretty good.
Cool.
Would anyone else like to strike?
Can I keep this? Or
Yeah,
would you like this back?
No, take it.
And will you strike me a coin because my wrist is dead from doing
Here.
scribal things?
Can I do a coin for her?
That's always
Yes.
really good.
We'll do one strike, then your question.
Structure.
Because don't want too much over talking for our video. Don't know if it's a faux pas to reference the fact that we're on video or not.
So then you take. Nope.
Yeah, I just grabbed the whole thing to lift it off.
This is okay.
I will take an okay coin. I'm fine with that.
Now
Yay!
do 400 more.
Yeah.
No.
I had to
We
do
had
a couple
a-
of hundred before my strike started looking good.
We have some questions back here.
Go see Crying
Do
Baby.
you do only like aluminum and pewter, or have you gone into like things like coppers and brasses?
I've got some copper and brass.
He struck
over
some
here.
brass while he's been sitting here too.
Yeah,
I haven't been able to
there's
see from the.
we
Come
got.
over, come look.
I mostly work aluminum, mainly because it's just the cheapest to work with. But yes, aluminum is cheapest. Pewter is the most forgiving. Brass is less forgiving than aluminum. But yes, I do some work with those as well.
Pretty.
So I came in rather late, and
Did you get a handout?
no, I did not.
All right, I will get you one. We got some.
There's extras of these ones too.
Oh,
So what is this?
Yeah, right, because I know where to get it.
Yeah, I
That
got
is
it.
coin
that
is
is the
right.
current royal pound. So that is the
Is this
sovereign
the-
coin of
is this the
Gelida and
same one?
Killian.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
I don't need to take one home because I've got all that
Percival's
information.
lotus on it.
Well,
And
I'll
Killian,
take
that
those
cross,
since you've got all
he has a
that.
green and
And,
white cross, which is
but
his
the-
lotus.
Neat.
So
The
she's
other question I have is,
Yes.
when you are working on carving into the metal, what do you use as your carving tools? Like a
that was
paper?
that was one thing we covered on earlier, but it's these punches here. When we're done, I can give you a little rundown on. Talks about it a little bit here, but what these are, these were like alphabet punches used for marking tools, but any high carbon steel will work.
So basically, these would be the end profile.
Yes, there are. Here, I'll show you the page in the notes. There are 7 basic shapes that pretty much all letters and designs can be made out of. You carve that. You start with like a big mill file to about 80% of the way there. Then you hit with needle files till you're about 95% of the way there. Then for the last 5%, you use sandpaper to get it shaped to the dimensions you want. I have a couple special ones I did in here, but the rest of these are like your basic shape. So it's like long stems, crescents.
You're making the punches out of
any high carbon steel. So these were like alphabet punches for marking tools that I like sanded down, but like these were concrete nails. Talking earlier, you can use piano wire.
How much creative
nails.
Yeah.
Money.
Cheap, like the cheapest you'll probably find are the concrete nails, because you can buy a big box of those for
I haven't done this yet.
It's just you just need you need some kind of steel that can be hardened, because those like after you carve it, you then oil harden it, and then use that to make your impressions in the dies.
And the dies are made of what material?
1 inch diameter. So these, for a 3/4 inch coin, use a 1 inch diameter piece of cold rolled steel round stock.
That's a heavy duty piece.
Oh yeah, and like the heavy duty is the bolster here, but you want them to be able to take a fair amount of abuse. Like your average die will survive.
That's going to teach me patience.
Yeah.
2,000 coins is the conservative estimate. Maybe more so for your bottom die, because what wears out the top die is pretty much wholly just the mushrooming of the top.
Yeah. This is probably around 300 or so strikes, because I do 240 coins to give the person, some for me, plus some that didn't turn out well and that. So that's around probably in the range of 300 strikes.
This one has been the most abused die I've ever had. Has probably at least 800 to 900.
This bottom die has a couple of 1,000.
If you got more,
because I did, let's see, I did 800 for
link on
Brigham.
here.
I did 240 each for
check out
Angist, Mirabai,
the Inner Kingdom Money Guild on Facebook.
Do you ever look at any period examples?
Oh yeah, tons. I haven't made any replicas of period coins, but a lot of the ones I've done are vaguely based. Like this, like the design of this here is based off of like a German-esque coin.
I see. What do they call that cross design? There's a
Maltese cross.
Maltese.
That's off of His Majesty's heraldry, because this is the current reign coin.
Is there a particular period coin that you really want to try to reproduce?
Oh yes. It is not. It is not actually
That's what PSC is for.
Where is my coin binder? Oh, there it is. It is not actually a money coin. It is a jeton, which is basically a coin token that was used for counting, like on those counting boards, because someone has done one. It is this one here. It's like a man at a counting board on one side and like a full alphabet on the other side.
That's fantastic.
It is a.
Can I? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, pass it around. It is a Reckenmeyer Fenning jeton, which basically
I love that.
Yeah. It's a German penny representative token.
So it's a placeholder on a counting board.
Pretty much.
There's a handful of different kinds of tokens out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that were made the same way that aren't.
Let's say if you saw something in my page of coins that I've made are the no cash value tokens for the Wednesday company, the fencing household I'm in, because their original token were arcade tokens made by a company called Wednesday Company. No relation. They
That's
just
one of the ones you got in the back of your.
yes, in the back. And so like their slogan is no cash value as a joke from the original tokens there. So as those original arcade tokens are hard to find, I started making those for the household.
Talk about abbreviations.
Abbreviations for your writing?
The wordings on the coins.
Mm-hmm. So I made a little bit of a mistake, not design-wise, in terms of ambition-wise for these royal pounds, because I wrote out the whole words. So like the writing on the back says Kilian Mitte König, which means King of the Middle in German.
Yeah.
What number is he? CVII. So 107. And then ASLIX. I'll put it this way. I had to carve each of these 5 times before I got it right, because you make one mistake on one letter, the whole thing you gotta start over, because you can't undo that. So it talks about it briefly. If you look on page, it's where it's talking about the lettering. Let's see here. Page, is it 9? Or maybe he removed that part.
Talking about the forward back.
No, we're talking about the abbreviation.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there it is. Page 7. It's at the bottom. It's talking about abbreviation. So, also when it's talking about mon dies, so because a lot of moneyers would sometimes have a personal die. Like mon die basically means moneyers die. So, for example, the example Ealdred uses here is Ealdred mon Mall, which is from Moneyer of Malmesbury. Oh, and that's from the recent known world Moneyers coin exchange.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Like, yeah, there's a level I aspire to reach that I don't think I ever will. There was a man by the name of his SCA name was Ian Null, and he is granted it's a very niche group, historic coin makers. He is a legend, capital L in that. Some of the coins, the fictional coins at the back from Shire Post Mint, he was one of the founders of Shire Post Mint. The Dale, the brass coin, like the Dale Gilder with the dragon on it, was his magnum opus. That die took him 3 years to carve. Oh, thank you.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's like, I've still got a long way to go. Like,
How long did the one for the current reign take you to carve?
Total or this specific
This
pair?
iteration, the specific iteration.
Each I would guess probably this one maybe half, the one side about half an hour, the side to the writing about an hour and a half.
Okay. And how many iterations did you go through?
5 each. So yeah, it took me probably, and granted I'm a perfectionist, I could have gotten away with it being less fancy than
It's
this.
still faster than I would have anticipated,
Yeah.
in all honesty.
But no, it took me probably, because there's also the time to like refile and like repolish dies after mistakes.
Yeah.
Basically, all in all, from start to finish of just making the dies to have the final set, I would guess 20-ish hours of work.
Okay, that's closer to what I was anticipating.
But that is with a lot of trial and like remaking them from mistakes.
To reiterate then, if you mess up on a die, can you hypothetically then, or do you sand it all the way back down to restart, or do you have to scrap the die and get a new one?
Connor
You
was
can
saying
you can sand it
that.
down.
Okay,
Yeah, you can
that's what I
sand it down.
figured, and it might take
But
a long
it's-
time.
Yeah.
it's worse than saw purse.
Yeah.
You know, it's because it depends on what you're doing. Because like you're gonna put another bead border where that bead border is. So if your bead border was deep
Yeah.
and you don't get it all off, that's fine because you're gonna put another one right over the top of it.
Right. Gotcha.
Which is one thing I tried to do especially when I was on this iteration. You got to be really careful about this, but I don't necessarily recommend this unless you're really confident in yourself. I double tap them. So I go around with the punches a first time and then go around a second time. Here's the issue with that. If you look on one of the stars on this other iteration I did, you can see if you slip when you strike it and it's slightly askew, granted, it wasn't so bad that I was like, all right, I gotta scrap this one again. But that is a risk you will take.
I have fixed some mistakes by overstriking, by striking it correctly a little deeper.
So
it's not that different from block printing in that sense, because it's hey, once you've printed it and you've looked at it again, how likely are you to be able to line it exactly back up again?
Yeah.
So
it depends on how bad the mistake was.
Yeah.
Were there cast coins prior to, is that...
Some cast blanks were more common. There are some people that do cast coins. Was it Alexander de Seaton, I think, does a lot of cast coins. I forget his full name. Etten? What's his... You just run Stone Dogs.
Yeah.
I forget his full name. He also does cast coins. And theirs are like carved, basically the whole coin carved into soapstone.
Yeah.
And then just poured. And
the reason I have the blanks is before I was doing this, I was doing pewter casting. And I had I just carved a row of coin blanks that I was going to carve coins. I just hadn't figured out the design yet, and then I started doing this. So I've only used them a couple of times when I needed pewter blanks, where I just cast my own blanks.
So yeah, there are people that do them. I don't know if there's no historical precedent or just not much.
Yeah.
They weren't coins.
Right.
But there were things like that made that were coin-like.
It's like the difference between
the term you used, Juttons.
Yeah, Juttons.
They were often like tavern money.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you bought your drink tickets.
Yeah, right.
Some of the Viking
you're saying coin-like objects. I'm just laughing because it sounds a lot like, an anvil versus an anvil-shaped object. A coin versus a coin-shaped object.
Imagine getting consistent money that way. You would have to really do it one coin at a time, or else you have to really precisely make a bunch of molds. So this is probably more consistent.
Well,
they were also saying the weight is the thing that's important.
Also, some interesting things. Die sets were generally made at the rate of one bottom to 2 or 3 tops.
Oh.
And
they
they were
considering how we're seeing he's destroying the one he's got.
And they were also like I said, the dies in period would last a couple thousand strikes, but they would have to strike tens, if not hundreds. Like they struck thousands of coins a day at some of these mints. That's what the job of the master minter was the fact that they could reproduce pretty much the exact face on that, and also it's about part of it is having the proper weight and the proper markings on it, dictating them as real money. Because there were ways people tried to circumvent stuff like that. So for example, the bead border, the reason that the coins have that bead border on it is because people would sometimes take a little file and shave away the edges of the coin, sell the excess, or it was called clipping, or snip away the excess.
Because then you could remelt it down.
Yeah, remelt it down. And so that was right at the edge, so if that was missing, that means the coin had been cut down. And that's also why, again, going into the banking and accounting stuff, money weights and money changers were a big thing, because there was no standard conversion weight. or conversion value between like different countries. It was wholly based upon the weight of the coins, and especially en masse, like huge purchases were done just based on the weight that you got, not necessarily the exact count of coins. That's also, the origin of, the term a pound is because a pound is 240 coins, because 240 silver pennies weighed 1 pound. And that's how that became like the standard for, a big purchase, because that was just the easiest way to measure that many at once.
So in for a penny, in for a pound?
Yes, actually. Because also, it's the lowest amount of currency we have, but for the longest time, the penny was the only coin there was. The shilling and the pound, for a while, were just units of accounting. A shilling is 12 cents, and there were 20 shillings in a pound. But that was just for accounting purposes. There was no shilling coin for a while.
And the term mark often didn't refer to an actual unit of money you'd had, but it was an accounting term. So many marks was it was purely accounting. There wasn't like a coin that was a mark.
It's not period. And yes, anyone else want? We've got 5 minutes left. If anyone would like to strike a couple, all right, come on up.
Do it.
Yeah. Would you like to sit or stand?
I'm just upset
All right.
that I am not in a position to be able to try it.
All right. Where did I put the?
I've got another scroll make for
one
next
right there.
weekend, and I do not need to risk my rest.
So let me set this up. I'll be just because I give better strikes with a computer for everybody. So you just grab it here, and then just give it a good hit.
Lift your hand. You don't want your hand resting on the anvil.
Oh yes.
Yeah, no.
Maybe you want your hand above this, because if you hit your hand, it'll do that. If your hand is here and you hit it, it will collapse. Good catch, thank you.
I think I hit it off center, but
You also, you're gonna want a little more force.
It's hard. It's harder than it looks.
Don't
He's making it look very easy.
Don't be afraid of
I did
it
a
as
couple
well.
with-
Please
If
Bring it a
you've done
little.
wood construction,
Here,
I have a great
right up
thing
there.
is
And just give it a
that
good
after
hit.
you've tapped the nail in where it's set and you give it that first good hit,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's what it feels like to me power wise. Is
Okay.
that first good hit to drive the nail
Do you wanna
once
try
you got
one
it
more?
set.
I did a few.
You can do it.
50.
You want me to help guide the?
Then you give a nail and
You want part of it is you want to
Well,
more
it's
have it
the-
up and then down.
that's
So
bad.
give it more height initially.
Use regular nails, finishing nails. And, yeah, you get the.
It's a
When
little
they
light, but you can
bend,
you
you're
can
looking
see
at
the
it
whole
going-
thing on there. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But it's
ready?
that it's for
for that,
If you have that-
it's got
if you have
kind
that-
of power.
if you
Show
have
us all
that
how it's
experience, it
done.
tells you about the power range you want to start in.
So can you strike on copper?
Yeah, it's about as hard as it's about as difficult when I say to strike as brass is.
So, was it like a good straight hit?
Yeah,
Let's see how you did.
pretty good.
Yeah. Because I'm coming at this from, I do copper and amylin. And
Let me trade places with you. I'll show you a copper one real quick.
because I've started doing blackwork enamel.
Mm.
And but I could do black relief on the coins and then enamel over them.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because I work exclusively with copper. Or silver.
I
but
like how many.
I'm also a broke student.
I like how all sorts of CA hobbies overlap each other. I
So
go,
much.
wait, this thing that I know how to
So
do.
you
works
can
all
kind of
this.
strike it, but it is
Oh, it's
it's even that would have been a good strike on brass. So
yeah.
because copper, like brass, is something you gotta anneal.
That's why they have the machines with the big gears that push them when you're hitting flat.
Oh my goodness, there is a screw press on auction up near Chicago right now that I am seriously contemplating bidding on, because there's a couple of people moneyers that use those and then get real good brass images out of it. It's a matter of convincing my friend that has a garage to let me keep it there. Because I live.
Eternal struggle.
Well, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I collect Lord of the Rings swords.
Oh, no.
So there's no room for anything there at all. And already do coin making, leatherworking, about 3 different kinds of fiber arts, and a bunch of other stuff. And I cosplay when I'm not doing the SCA, so
Yeah.
I don't have space for a screw press.
I feel
I have a garage and I really don't have space for a screw press because I saw
Dang,
that.
dang it, I was about. Oh, right, you did. I was about to say, hey, if you want to go in on that screw press, come keep it at your place.
How far are you willing to drive?
I'm in Bloomington, Indiana.
I still want.
So you need to
I still want
convince
to park
Connell
my
that he
van
needs
in the
it.
garage in the winter.
You can do all things.
It's been set up as a
Yeah.
workshop.
See, well, there's. Oh wait, well, I have another friend, Connell, that lives just like one town up from me. Maybe I'll convince him.
Because like.
Thank you for coming to the class.
Yes, thank you for doing this.